once pledged and promised myself that I want to be as honest as I can. I didn't think you what an idiot, but what a deaf. I need to say, my shoes are much too small. I would prefer to stand up here barefoot. My heartbeat is increased. I feel a sort of adrenaline flush in my body. This is what we would call ecstatic masculinity. I think it's very important. That is also why we live it so little, so that we can share something, because we are certainly not the only ones who have an increased heartbeat. Look to the right and to the left just to make sure, or if there is any. Do you know that man? Look to your first job will be not that you need to become acquainted, that will come later. Your first job will be, no, it will create some chaotic situations, but we said, let's just do it. Look for a chair where to the left and to the right there are men, or is a man sitting that you have never talked to. And we are doing this right now. So, very nice. And you may now calm down, so get back to me. So the last few men find each other. Wonderful. What has this got with ecstasy? But you may always ask, why has he done that? Well, only towards the end will you know why. Andreas has announced us very beautifully. This is Martin and I'm Sven. Hi. We look a bit similar. We are not brothers, but we have the same hairdresser. Now, he can do just one haircut and takes a lot of money. So, if you're ecstasy in my life, or in turning it the other way. Let me ask you a few questions. Look inside yourself and check it out, whether you hear a yes answer. The first question is, do you want in your life to have this thing? Do you want it, what your male vision male mission is? Do you want to earn your money and to help other people from the bottom of your heart? Do you want to explore this wonderful, wonderful world, knowing other cultures? Once you have seen everything that one can see, do you want to tell stories after your return that simply enthrall other people? If you go to a date with your current partner or with a new person, do you really want to have this crackling sound in the air that you are playing around with the wine glass until you finally can do it? Do you want to have sex that is flushes your brain and catapults it into the Milky Way? Do you want to have a deep feeling of love, for example, because you love your partner so much, because you can watch your child doing the first steps? This is a deeply moving theme. Martin became a father 6 months ago, and I'm going to be a father in 6 months' time. Well, I haven't done so much as yet. So I will, yes, I share also this pregnancy, but I haven't done this big work. But know why women check it out very carefully, what type of man they have by their side. It's full of ecstasy. It's something, what is what is kicked off, it has to do a lot with a feeling that prompts so many to refrain from certain things. That's fear. What is behind the fear are your objectives. If you had no fear, you would have reached your objectives anyway for a long time. Let me point out one thing. All those things that you have set yourself as targets, the cars, the wonderful women, the friendships, a greater property, all that heap of money is just an intermediate step to an inner emotional condition, the condition of ecstasy, I would say. Exactly. Let me start out from an earlier point in time. Well, Sven will be a father in just a few months' time. I think it got lost on our way. As if we had taken an agreement for this conference topic. Andreas, 3 years ago, we talked about friendship between men, Sven and I. We weren't friends from scratch. It was a bit like Andreas and Sven. It was just a cool idea. I just liked it, and I cooperated, among other things, with this audio book. In 2015, I joined the men's conference, Friendship and Fatherhood. That's why we talked 2015, friendship. That has grown over time. In the last years, from my own, out of my own, and just judging by my observations, and what I wanted to talk about is ecstasy, living an ecstatic form of masculinity. As it happens, once you study the topic of ecstasy, what is it? But before giving your definition, I would ask you to get up to your feet. And please, some of you, please hold up your arms. Oh, it looks so great. It looks great. Now, please keep them up. Mark what Sven does. There's a TED Talk on what we are doing, the TED Talk by Amy Cuddy. She found out if you hold up your arms, the testosterone level will be increased by 20%. Cholesterol goes down. So that's a winner's pose. Please keep your arms up. What does Wikipedia say? Ecstasy. It comes from the Greek ekstasis, getting out of one's mind. It's a collective definition for extraordinary psychic situations that can be unleashed by a trance or a physical status of exception. The mind during ecstasy is heightened, or the experience tells you, or the observer have the impression that they are no longer inside themselves, outside of them, out of one's mind. So, yeah, getting out of the usual perception field. The article of Wikipedia will take about 3 pages. I'm going to read it up. No, ecstasy in psychology has a negative connotation because getting out of it with psychosis. That's not my definition. That's not our definition of ecstasy. Our definition of ecstasy is this one: the feeling of livelihood or being alive, and I am the coolest man on earth, self-assertiveness. I am fucking awesome. So Andreas just hammered the nail on the head. Why are you here? So your arms are getting heavier and heavier. Just for a while, keep it up. You don't have to keep them up all the time. This is stage sadism. Sven must suffer and I can take my time. So everybody is here for a certain reason. Coaching travels. Most men have a certain issue that they want to drive at. Here, for us, it's flirting, sexuality, and relationship, but it can be everything else. Most of us know what they have got to do to reach that, but they have not the courage to get there. They are not bold enough to admit to their feelings of uncertainty and fear. And that's the way to exercise. Courage does mean, yes, I have fear. I feel fear, but nonetheless, there is the burning house, and my kid is in there. Although I am fearful, I will continue. You may now close your eyes, and you may take down your arms, and just feel it. Feel for just one moment. What does this do to you? After this effort, you feel a certain light-mindedness, or probably some of you will feel the testosterone rush. This is a form of ecstasy, and that will be our topic, our subject matter. Please feel inside yourself. After a while, you may sit down again. Thank you very much.
Okay. And when you think about the way your right and left arms have just felt, then you will see that you have just experienced a type of ecstasy that people normally don't talk about very much in our society. On the contrary, in our society, people just focus on the results of the ecstasy, on how to consume ecstasy. But if you follow our blogs, our YouTube channel, Instagram and Facebook, then you can see there are lots of stories about ecstasy out there. But if you have a look at all these sources, all these websites, you can have the impression that all the things that we do is just very cool. You know, what are we doing? We're interviewing women, we're asking women about sex, we're flirting with them, we're asking them about sex, of course, at least in theory. We have founded a big, or we've rented a big flat where that we share with several men. We live there together. Matthias, for example, is here as well. He's one of the men. And then we became friends, the two of us, for example. But we also created a real network of, well, of men who are, well, united like brothers. And then we got this good old car here from 1980. High speed is 90 kilometers per hour. That's as fast as it can go. So we got this car, this van, and then we decided to travel to Switzerland and on to Italy and to Spain and all the way down to Morocco, the Sahara. And whenever we told somebody about that, they told us, well, you won't even get through the Alps with that old thing. Forget about it. But we did it nevertheless. We said, fuck, we're going to do it. By the way, we were also afraid. But we did it. So with this car, we actually drove all the way down to the Sahara and all the way back, of course. We called this car Ivan because this car was as loud as a Russian and it swallowed like a Russian. And in the end, we sold it again, actually for more money than we had bought it for at the beginning. And then we said, well, why not go to Romania, for example, and you can see us standing on the mountaintop. And of course, in a way, when you see this, just think, oh, they're having a cool time. It's really admirable. It's fantastic. And together with the company, I mean, not these two sweet girls, but the other guys here on the photo. So with them, we said, oh, Germany is so cool in the winter. So why don't we all travel to Nepal first and then on to Bali and rent a villa there with a pool and have the greatest time of our lives? And then I'll be soon, assuming I've been a father. Martin already is a father. I will soon be a father. And so to the outside world, this might look like, oh, they are having a great time, really. They're having a fantastic life. So that's the result of the ecstasy that people want to see. That's what I said. The society often focuses on the results of the ecstasy, on the things you finally get to see on the internet. But what we are trying to do is, I mean, all those things that we see on Facebook or in TV commercials, we always say, I want that too. I want to buy that too. I also want to travel. Or there are some people on Instagram who have blinds or shutters with a picture of Paris on it, and then they can take a selfie with themselves, Paris in the background, or Moscow in the background. It only costs 50 euros, these shutters, these blinds, and it looks very impressive because it looks like that person is really in Paris or in Moscow. And that's impressive when you see it on Instagram, but I don't know if this is really an ecstatic life. I don't know if that's what you have in mind when you say, yes, I want to be on a mission, I want to have a great time, I want to do what I want to do, and I want to feel just good. I don't know if these shutters, these blinds, are the best way to do that. I think it should be something more realistic than that, something more real. And you'll soon see what I'm aiming at, because, as I said, so far, people just focus on the results of the ecstasy, the things they can see on the internet. And that is a big problem. It's no surprise you have problems with friends if you want to experience ecstasy in this way. For example, if you want to have friends that are like brothers, because then you'll be waiting forever. You're waiting for your friends to open up and not just to keep talking about football and beer. You're going to wait for something deeper to be talked about, something deeper to happen, and you wait forever. And you hope that one day you will be able to consume deeply rooted friendship amongst men. It's the same with falling in love. You know, you meet somebody new, you fall in love, and you have this feeling. You say it's such a cool feeling. And then again, you're enjoying the result of the ecstasy. You're enjoying the feeling that you have now achieved. But this feeling will go down again. It will decline. It will diminish. And then you say, why doesn't my girlfriend do a bit more to make sure I'll stay in love with her? So we accuse others. If these results of ecstasy diminish. It's the same with health. It's the same with, and this is really where it's getting most obvious, it's the same with sexuality. Because compared with the past, it is very difficult today to get access. It is very easy today to get access to pornographic material. Just grab your smartphone, and depending on how versed you are in using the internet, it just takes you 30 to 60 seconds to open a website, and then it takes you like 1 to 3 minutes to have the feeling of a flop. You know, I can't really say that I was that much different, but this feeling of a flop is not so much ecstasy. It's just a genital thing. It's just feeling that you don't get an orgasm that shoots you out into universe, outer space. Now, some people believe they have an orgasm when in fact it's just a genital reflex, simply because there's one important thing that we forget when we talk about ecstasy. There's something about ecstasy that we don't get to see on these beautiful photos or on Instagram. And this factor that we always forget is this kind of ecstasy takes time. It takes an effort. So in order to achieve the state of ecstasy that we saw there on the mountaintop, well, it required time and an effort. We had to carry a 20-kilogram backpack up this fucking mountain. And while we were walking up the mountain, we said, what am I doing here? Why am I carrying this heavy rucksack? And why did I even pay for this? Or, you know, we have just returned from Nepal. Which of you has ever been on mountains higher than 5,000 meters? That's super easy, isn't it? Very easy to do. No. When I was up there, I took a video clip of the final meters, and this video clip looks like the people are just going for a walk, very relaxed. But I knew from my own experience that they were almost breaking down, you know? If you ever climb a mountain 5,000 meters high, and then you come down again, then the air feels like you are breathing in a liquid. So beautiful is that moment. So what it takes in order to have a beautiful life is not this final moment, the result of the ecstasy that is shown on the photos. No, the feeling of ecstasy is very much related to the curve, the way the tension unfolds and develops while you're getting there. Well, one interesting example here. Which of you knows St. James Path? St. James Path in Spain? I walked it about 8 years ago. So the objective is Santiago. That's where they all want to go. It's like a pilgrimage. And on the way to Santiago de Compostela, you actually go from one bar to the next, and you always get a stamp. So you have a little booklet, and with every step, with every stop, with every bar, you get you get a stamp at every bar. And then in the end, in Santiago, you hand over your booklet with all the stamps, and then you get a certificate. So you are walking there, burned skin, sunburned, heavy rucksack on your back. I had 18 blisters on my feet. And then I arrived there at one of the bars, and there was a big bus driving by, you know, with air conditioning. The doors opened up, and at that moment there were Asian women coming out with makeup and lipstick and beautiful fancy clothes with a little fan like this. And they look around and they say, and they looked at us as though we were aliens. And we said, huh? We looked at them as though they were the aliens. And then these Asian ladies, they walked in the bar, and they also had this little booklet for the stamps. They also got the stamps. And I thought, that's interesting. A few days later, I arrived at Santiago. I had walked 420 kilometers, which is okay, because I met somebody who had actually walked 3,000 kilometers to get there. 3,000 kilometers by foot, and that is a fucking achievement. So I arrived at Santiago de Compostela. There's this church, you know. You go to this church and you're sitting down there. That's the goal, the objective. And then you see other tourists coming in, and they get the same certificate for their stamp book, but they traveled on this air-conditioned bus. And they come into the church, and they get into the church, and they take a few photos. And then you have the pilgrims, you know, those who have really walked such a long distance, who already smell a bit, who have suffered very much, and they sometimes have tears in their eyes when they finally make it into that cathedral. Now, if you had an emotional barometer, I think, what do you think? Which of the two groups really experienced ecstasy? Well, of course, the wanderers, the pilgrims, those who have really walked the distance and not taken the air-conditioned bus. And that's what it's all about. That's the important part, and that's something that often gets forgotten today. The way, the effort, the time, the tension that you have to invest before you can really experience real ecstasy. And in particular, in my generation, people have really grown up with lots of claims, with lots of demands. They got everything for free, you know. When I was little, I grew up in East Germany, in the GDR, and sometimes there were things that I wanted to have and they were just not there. They were not available. I mean, sometimes on Amazon there are also things that are not available, but that's a different story. And when I was born, by the way, my parents wanted a girl. I already have an older brother, and they wanted a girl this time. But I'm a boy. I was a boy as well. And my brother saw me and said, "Why isn't that a girl?" And the nurse at the hospital said, well, baby girls were not available, so you got a boy. And my elder brother understood that, but I think younger people today don't understand these words anymore. Not available. They don't understand that anymore. Instant gratification, that's what they want. And an incredible narcissistic madness on Instagram and co, showing everybody how beautiful our lives are, how fantastic our food is. We always create this illusion that the things that you see on Instagram are ecstasy. I want to travel there. I want to have that. But what you never bear in mind when you see these photos is the price that people had to pay for that. And that's something that you see in particular in the younger generation. They come to us with this attitude, I am unique, I'm wonderful, I've earned everything I have. And if there's a problem, well, then that's the fault of the government. Let the government take care of it. And if I ever get in trouble, if I lose my job, I want money from the state. So it's really a very demanding attitude. They demand without being willing to take on responsibility. I know each of you is a fantastic human being. I know each of you has a lot to give to the world. But I think that's not a birthright, you know. You earn your rights, and you also earn this positive attitude in your life. You have to develop your personality throughout life. And that's why this topic is a bit unpleasant, in particular for younger people, because it's not about asking for something and demanding something, but it's about responsibility. And then they say, well, I'm only a small wheel in the machinery, I don't have any power. I mean, we've just had the European elections, and there were so many people who said, I don't go to vote because it's no good anyway. And then I say, fuck it. No, that's nonsense. I'm absolutely sure there has never been a time when the individual had as much power as it does today. You know, there's a guy called Rizzo. He made a YouTube video clip about how to destroy the CDU, the Conservative Party. Now, you may think of that whatever you will, but bam, this guy reached out to 15 million people that way. Do you think he was born that way? No, he worked for it.
And we are not born like that, but we are shaped like that. Without delving too much in depth, it has got a lot to do with our father, or with yin and yang, so not necessarily with gender, but to build up this tension, this curve of tension. It's something that we learn rather from fathers. Sharon will say more of this. So many fathers are still simply not there, either physically, because they are always busy with their work, or emotionally, because they come utterly drained from their jobs and tell us, oh, please let me alone. I don't need any more stress. It's not that in the nursery school we have more male reference, but we have 5.8% of share of male. In primary schools we have a lowering to 16.2%, a lowering by 2%. What's missing are male role models. For example, our trainer, our sports trainer, we hated this when he made us squat so many times. That's the moment when you ask, why am I doing this? But normally we learn this sense of effort from our fathers. It's absolutely fundamental to change anything, to change your inner self, or to change even other people, people that you want to help, to drive them into a sort of ecstasy, to have this feeling of, well, I'm totally at ease with myself. I feel like the coolest guy on earth. Now, the purpose of this talk is to inspire you, to open up your glance for a certain form of lacking something. For example, have you read the fairy tale of Eisenhans? Some of them, right, the ash work, where the young man, the adolescent, must to bow down, he needs to eat ashes, knuckling down, eating the ashes to get something like a sweet taste into the ash eating. We are bloggers. It's about problems and solutions. We thought, okay, let's set up a 6-point plan. What could I change in my life? A form of qualitative ecstasy, to get slowly upwards. It's about role models, idols, inspiration, building up a stock of knowledge. It's so important. Whoever has read a book and has looked at the world with a different glance, that's so strong, utterly cool. One of the most important things is become knowledgeable. Pick your good mentors that will sculpt from this marble block, making it into a glorious statue that gives inspiration to people. Knowledge is power. Successful people read 50 to 60 books per year. So read books. Second, knowledge itself is not enough. But the next point is being honest to yourself and take on responsibility for my life. Honesty, well, it hurts. Honesty hurts to take a look. What type of life am I leading? What are my habits? Do I feel happy, unhappy? Be open to yourself, not in the sense of Instagram. Do not illude yourself or other people. Don't victimize yourself. Take up responsibility. So probably I'm not responsible for the rain. It's outside my control, but I'm responsible whether I go out with a smile, whether I can dance in the rain. So select certain areas in your life where you want to change them, a microcosm, and then ever bigger circles. And that's my firm belief. You cannot be a universal genius because the world is too big, but you can find certain things. Yeah, you feel a certain frenzy like tickling. For example, talking to women. That's how it all started out. Now we run this men's blog. I do not consume things. I go out of myself. I go out into the world. I interact. I do this on my own. I model it into something better. Third point, I take on responsibility, discipline, and your daily plan. We saw Andreas' movement that liberates you. Sorry, Andreas. It's not so easy. Discipline, sports. Sports is a good. If you go sports, you see the difference. Looking, do you see the difference? Well, the muscles are a bit more pumped up if you go a second time, the next time. Do you see a difference? No. Many people think, fuck it, and they give up. Or look, the same for a relationship. It was nice after all, but now I notice she has a tilted nose now. The real difference are really visible only if you commit yourself for half a year, 2 years, 3 years. Discipline. It's not the road of joy. It's tiresome. You need to overcome obstacles. It can be stressful. It can be difficult. Maybe you have lost energy, but discipline gives you something. If you work towards an objective for which you have the full responsibility, that what's burning in your soul, so this will lend sense to your life and also identity. Many men and human beings in general don't get this right. They cannot create an identity and a sense to their lives. And you need a discipline. Fourth point. Occasionally at well-placed, Christian Pessing, one of our mentors, once told us, if you have an orgasm, very well, okay, it's a good feeling, but not more frequently than once every 3 months. That's well-placed. I'm not so gross, or I find this rather extreme. But it's okay to go out in the evening to have parties. It's good to have exit. Have you ever been to a Berlin club between 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock in the morning? Have you seen into the faces that are jumping around? There are certainly that are really having a great time. And some pretend having a great time because they are pumped up by chemicals. But you see a veil hanging before their eyes. I would say that's the majority. I would say about 80%. Andre Ortlieb, he taught me something very cool. These are people that celebrate without having anything to celebrate. I would rather say celebrate something occasionally and well-placed, take decisions. I want to go there and this one not. Because we tend, and there are so many studies on this, we try to participate in every party to keep all options open, but you will never get into a nice room. I had to learn it. I'm a candidate who wants to play around everywhere, and I've learned it over the last years. No, I don't do that. Yes, I do that. That's the big power of the no. So yes, okay, celebrate. Party is okay, but only with a reason. Fifth point, and that goes with it, be courageous, or as we heard, have the balls. You've got the balls. Well, everybody knows it. Whoever has tried to reach the stars, there were obstacles. Obstacles are on your way, and this drives you into ecstasy, overcoming the obstacles. To overcome obstacles requires effort. It's difficult, but it feels so cool, so satisfying. I have a metaphor. Sitting by the campfire, there are two men. One of these men is dressed normally, a normal face, average haircut, like the two of us. And unconspicuous, if you look at him into the eyes, there is no shimmer, no shining light in his eyes. And the other one, but the first one is healthy, and another one in rugged garments. Every piece has a patina. There are marks in his face. There are tattoos on his forearms, and you see a twinkling in his eyes and a broad grin. Who of the two will tell me the more interesting stories about love? The second one. Yes, I would guess so. I would ask him, what have you gone through? Who do you want to be at the end of your life? And if I ask him, have you ever been afraid, the one with the scarred face? Probably he will not be as old, but as Rüdiger Neberg, one of the survivors, it's rather preppy and short rather than a long life and a boring life. There are hardly any areas where you put your life at risk or your health at risk. Be courageous enough to reach out for the stars. The sixth point, who of you is attending for the very first time at a men's event, never participating? I remember my very first time. It was that Eisenhans, where John is grinning over his whole face. I was interested in NLP, and my mother told me that there is a camp where the most famous NLP trainer organizes it. I was a poor university student. My mother sent me there. She knew what she was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. If you knew. Now, I got there. The first thing I noticed, I said, fuck, only men. Okay. I said, and probably you saw it. They were so touchy. They hugged each other. They even cuddled together. And I said, oh, is this a homosexual sex party or what? So I got cramps. And I was so against all this. What twitched me was my fear of myself, the fear of the other man, and as I have increasingly found out, the fear that I was still carrying of my father. And I realized my life had changed essentially just by hanging out, chilling for 10 days just with men. Thinking about things that really matter. When I got back in my student's flat, my fellow student Sasha, who had then made love to a new student and a new girl, and I was sitting next to this room. Why does nobody love me? Well, I tell this, but I felt so shitty back then. And the way out of this shitty situation, the way to women leads through men. That's what I realized when I came back, when I was sitting next to Sasha on the couch. And I had, for the very first time, I had experienced my fear, the fear of the male element, of the fatherly element in myself. And we kept the safety distance when we talked to each other without thinking about it. I was sitting directly next to him, and I had a much more frank talk to him. I do not know, how do you get along with women? And how Sasha took me by my hand, literally, and he led me as my mentor. I would never have discovered it myself as a loner sitting in my room. And if you hear all this discipline and all that, I need to take decisions. I need to adopt discipline. You haven't got to do it on your own. Because here and now you have men sitting next to your left and to your right, with who you can get into contact. By getting into contact with other men, you get into contact with yourself. You can go the full circle, which makes up our definition. Martin pointed it out. Number one. Whoever attended the Eisenhans camp, well, look around. Probably you can address the other fellow men. It's theory, but talk to people. What was the connection with your own gender, with other men? Before we redefine ecstasy, I forgot what we have so funny things. Our everyday life is like this. That's our full cycle. That's our office. Between 40 to 60 hours per week. It's rather dull. It's hot because some are wearing only t-shirts. Before I became a dad, it was 60 to 100 hours. We designed videos, we wrote articles. You don't see this guy like Rizzo, who has an enormous reach, and everybody else who did something great. I can promise you. He has gotten a thing like that for thousands of hours. And now we come to the broadened definition.
Ist das, was du durch einen anderen
Yes, the definition, that's something very important. This type of ecstasy follows after a long phase of hard work and challenge and renouncement. So, for example, if you have a lot of money, this money doesn't give you a feeling of ecstasy, the money itself. But you can develop a feeling of ecstasy if you get into contact with yourself, with your own feelings. And the easiest way to do that, the fastest way to do that, is through another man. So Martin and I, we talked about, we have a certain number of YouTube followers and so on, you know, this large number of followers. But the reason why we can do all of that, and the reason why we can reach out to quite a few people, is simply because Martin and me, we went to Eisenhans and other men's groups and workshops and conferences in order to reduce our fears. Now let's move on to the more practical part. Oh yes, but just one more thing I'd like to highlight here. This kind of lifestyle, when you ask yourself, what do I want to do, where do I want to go, how do I get there, and then sacrificing something for that, this adds a meaning to your life, and that's what we all are looking for, and that's what in particular the young generation is struggling for, a meaning in life. André Ortlieb said, you are most male, you are most masculine when you don't think about it, when you just do what you want to do. Yes, the meaning in life. This is what gives you an identity. And now, let's move on to a more practical experience of all of this. I will ask you in a minute, not yet, but in a minute, to stand up, all of you, and then we will start here by the window, in groups of two, in pairs. We'll start over there, and then we'll move through this room, and we will start to find to each other, to get to each other in pairs. And then I'm afraid you'll have to raise your hands again, and it's going to be kind of an effort and also about a feeling of ecstasy. Let me demonstrate this with Martin. I'd like you to put your hands up in the air and touch your hands like this. You can also grab the hands or just put them like this. That's what you're supposed to do, as pairs, in groups of two, so to speak. And in this pose, when we do this, we'll have a beautiful experience. So could you please all stand up and get together in groups of two, in pairs. You don't have to put the hands up in the air yet. You can still leave them down. But make sure that you each are standing opposite a man you don't know, in the ideal case. You'll have to hold up the hands anyway, long enough. I mean, if you already want to start now, that's very well, but it's going to be tougher that way. So please, take your hands down again. Take your hands down again, please. Now, if there's somebody who doesn't have another man here yet, is there anybody who's still missing a partner for this exercise? No? Okay, so we just have pairs here. Very good. Well, then, have a look at the other man standing opposite you. Put your hands together. Thank you, Martin. Yes, and look the other man into the face, in the eyes. And now it might happen that in the next few minutes you will be confronted with some kind of defense reaction And the typical defense reaction is to start talking some nonsense, because they find this nearness, this closeness, embarrassing. Now you can choose one of the two eyes of the other man and just focus on that one eye. Now, one thing that men also typically do is they start grinning. When they look each other in the eye like that, they start grinning. Now, when I first did this exercise 10 years ago, I felt real stupid. I thought, now I'm hearing all this blah, blah, and I'm standing here doing this nonsense. But still, I'd like to ask you to have a very close look at the other man. And you can also see what his hair color is. Then look him in the eye. What's his eye color? What kinds of eye does this man have? How old is this man? Is he younger than you are or older? How tall or small is this man? Just perceive what kind of man is standing there in front of you. And thereby get in contact with him and with your feelings. How do you feel about this man? What kind of man is he? Does he seem to be a man who is assertive, who tackles his objectives, and you still don't have to move? You just have to give the other person your presence. That's all you have to give him. So what kind of man is he? Maybe he is the type of the best friend. What kind of man is he? Have a look at this man and just listen to your feelings. Could this man be a father? Or maybe not. Is this man really a cool guy? Or is this man more like somebody, well, who has problems in bed? Because more men than you would believe have problems in bed, either because they have problems with the erection or because they come too soon, too quickly. Is this man physically stronger than you are or weaker? And you can test it very carefully, very softly. Typically, it's the taller man who will be able to move the other man at least a millimeter. You can test this very carefully, but be careful while you're in contact, because you are in contact now. And the man, the one of you who is stronger, he's not only stronger, but he might also be the man who bears a certain responsibility. A responsibility to even play the role of a father for the other man to a certain extent. And now that your arms will probably be feeling quite a bit heavier already, the stronger man also has the task of the father to tell the other man, silently, you can do it. You're a strong man. I'm proud of you that you can do this. You know, all these words that we would have loved to hear in the past. And the other man, who is not quite as strong, accept this role of the father that the other man is playing. Enjoy these words that you hear, these silent words. And as your arms are gradually feeling heavier and heavier, maybe the other man, the slightly stronger man, will even grab your arms and hold them up in the air. Support each other in your contact while you're trying to hold the hands up in the air, because that's what creates ecstasy. Look at the other man and see the battles that he may have fought in his life. See the many defeats that he may have suffered in his life when he fought his battles. But also see his moments of victory when he was incredibly proud of himself. See the strengths of that man. Just follow your intuition. See how self-confident this man can be. Maybe also how much empathy, how much male depth this man can have, how much joy this man can feel, how much clarity and focus he can have. But also see the weak side, the weak aspects of the man standing opposite you. It doesn't have to be a man who is always cool. See how much this man may have suffered in his life. Maybe he had to go through depressions. Maybe he had to mourn. But, and this is something that often grows out of pain rather than joy, have a look at the other man's mission. Because so often we find it hard to discover our own mission, while we see other people's missions so clearly. And maybe you can even see how the man standing opposite you has long developed a feeling for your mission, and that your mission is something that's worth fighting for. Have a look at the story of this man. Imagine what this man looked like when he was a kid, when he was 5 years old, what his boyish face looked like, and support each other while you're struggling to keep the hands up in the air. Support each other. It's the two of you. You're not on your own. You're in contact. And then picture what this man might have looked like when adolescence set in, when he was a teenager and said, "Daddy is shit, Mom is shit," when he felt like a little rebel. And also picture this man and how afraid he was back then not to belong, not to be part of the group, because we all were afraid not to be part of the group. And then picture this man as he started to collect his first sexual experiences, no matter how weird and fucked up that was. Maybe also where that happened. But also see the problems that the man had in this context. See this man who is deep inside only wishing to be there 100%, to be honest 100%, to say, "This is me, I don't give a damn what the others think about it, that's what I am, and I like myself this way." But also see that this man may be a bit afraid to show this attitude. See this man, picture this man, what he looks like if he becomes older. Maybe he already is a bit older, but maybe he's not. So picture his face with all the wrinkles that life has given him. And try to feel all the wisdom that he has either acquired during his life or will acquire. And every one of us, including the man whom you're currently looking in the eye, will one day die. See this other man and be aware that one day this man will no longer be walking planet Earth. And by looking into this man's eyes, make yourself aware that the same will happen to you one day. And don't take your hands down yet, but you can do so in a few moments. And then please express your gratitude to this man. You can hug him, you can nod, or just feel your gratitude inside. So now you can take your hands down, you can silently thank each other. And you can feel and feel. You can feel these emotions for a bit longer. Take your time. And then you can also sit down again, have a seat again. So this is probably a feeling of relief and a feeling of presence, of being present. And I would like you to continue feeling these emotions. Do feel this relief. Now, this was, by the way, you already put your hands up in the air earlier, a bit earlier, you know. This time it was 3 times as long. It was 10 minutes this time. That's a lot, isn't it? Now, you see, Sharan is coming up next year on stage, and before this session, to prepare this, I talked with Sharan, and he said he once had such an exercise for more than an hour, and I can tell you, if you do that for more than an hour, then you will hear the angels sing. But still, 10 minutes. Respect, because you thought you're just going to be consuming a little bit of entertainment here and it's over. No, you went through it for 10 minutes, and all we can say is have a cool, ecstatic, interesting, informative, binding, connecting, networking conference. Thank you very much.